Hello, Dr. Chena Anderson, True Medicine founder, and I want to talk to you today about NeuroCode and how it can support individuals with learning difficulties and why we are beginning a new 18-month apprenticeship cohort to train a growing community of brain healing specialists. Now I want to begin with important truth. A learning difficulty does not mean that a person lacks intelligence. In fact, often they're more intelligent because they've had to do workarounds their entire life. Many children and adults are extremely bright, creative, intuitive, and capable, yet they struggle with reading, writing, memory, attention, speech, coordination, or processing information. They may work twice as hard as everyone around them and still feel as though they are falling behind. The problem is often not that they cannot learn. The problem may be that the brain and body are not communicating as efficiently as they should. So what is NeuroCode? NeuroCode is a brain integration system that looks beneath the visible difficulty. Instead of focusing only on the symptom, we ask deeper questions. Why is this child struggling to read? Why can this person explain an answer verbally but cannot write it on paper? Why does someone understand information one day but appear unable to remember it the next? Why does a student lose focus so quickly? Why does movement, noise, stress, or visual stimulation overwhelm the nervous system? Distract it. NeuroCode helps us explore the neurological systems that must work together for learning, movement, memory, emotional regulation, and communication. And the goal is not to label the person. The goal is to identify areas of disconnection, stress, or poor integration, and then support the nervous system in developing more organized patterns through NeuroCode. Now, learning involves the whole brain and body. We often think of learning as something that happens only in the mind. However, successful learning requires the cooperation of many systems. The eyes must be able to track words across a page. The ear must receive and organize sounds accurately. The brain must process information and store it in the memory. The body must remain regulated enough to sit, focus, and respond. And the hands must coordinate with the eyes for writing. The individual must understand where the body is in space. The emotional system must feel safe enough for the higher brain to stay engaged. Now, if one or more of these systems are not functioning efficiently, learning can become exhausting. A child may appear distracted when the real issue is auditory overload. A student may avoid reading because their eyes are not tracking smoothly. Someone may dislike writing because holding a pencil, organizing hand movements, and transferring thoughts onto paper requires an overwhelming amount of neurological effort. Another person may know the answer but struggle to retrieve the information when under pressure. Now, when we only focus on the behavior, we can miss the neurological reason behind it. So, learning challenges NeuroCode can support are things like reading and reading comprehension, dyslexia, dysgraphia, attention, concentration, memory and recall, visual processing, auditory processing, speech and language development, handwriting and written expression, sequencing, mathematical processing, executive function, emotional regulation, motor planning, and balance and coordination. NeuroCode does not approach every person in exactly the same way. Each individual has a unique brain-body pattern. So, what is the role of stress and the survival brain? The nervous system must feel reasonably safe before effective learning can occur. So when the brain believes that it's under threat, it gives priority to survival. In that state, higher cognitive functions can become less accessible. A child may shut down, even an adult may shut down, and they may become restless. They may become emotional or oppositional. They may avoid the task entirely. Sometimes what adults interpret as laziness, defiance, or lack of motivation is actually a nervous system that feels completely overwhelmed. NeuroCode helps us recognize the difference between unwillingness and neurological difficulty. And when the survival system becomes more regulated, the individual may have greater access to attention, memory, language, reasoning, and emotional control. In addition, we work with proprioception because the way the brain learns is through movement. That's how we all began walking, because we started with movement that led us to crawling and then sitting and then moving into walking and running. So one of our most important areas that we address through NeuroCode is proprioception. Proprioception is the body's internal awareness of position, movement, pressure, and space. And it's a system that allows you to know where your arms and legs are without looking at them. It helps you judge how much pressure to use when holding a pencil, picking up an object, climbing stairs, and moving through a crowded room. Proprioception supports posture, balance, coordination, eye-hand coordination, and motor planning, and spatial awareness. A person who with proprioceptive challenges may appear clumsy. They may bump into objects, and they may use too much force or too little force. They may struggle to sit upright. They may have difficulty crossing the midline of the body, and they may become tired during writing or reading. They may avoid physical activities because they do not feel secure in their body. Now consider what happens in a classroom. A student may be using an enormous amount of neurological energy simply to stay seated, stabilize the body, hold the head upright, control the pencil, and keep the eyes focused on the page. And by the time those demands are met, very little energy may remain for comprehension, memory, or problem solving. And this is why movement and learning cannot always be separated. When we strengthen the brain-body communication and proprioceptive awareness, we may also support the individual's ability to participate more confidently in academic and everyday activities. Now, we also address reflexes within the context of learning the NeuroCode system throughout the 18 months. And we look beyond diagnoses. A diagnosis may describe what a person is experiencing, but it does not always explain why it's happening. Such terms as dyslexia, ADHD, dysgraphia, sensory processing difficulty, or developmental delays can help identify a pattern, but NeuroCode asks us to look and continue to look at which systems are struggling, which pathways are perhaps broken through a traumatic brain injury, a difficult birth, being a twin, being a C-section, or being premature, or a concussion. So we look at why is the body compensating, and is the person experiencing visual, auditory, sensory, emotional, reflexive, or proprioceptive stress, and what might help the brain and body communicate more effectively. The purpose is not to replace appropriate educational, therapeutic, or medical care. The purpose is to add another layer of understanding and corrective support. NeuroCode works across the lifespan. It's not just for children. Adults may also experience challenges following concussion, traumatic brain injury, stroke, chronic stress, trauma, illness, or neurological decline. Older adults may begin to struggle with memory, balance, coordination, spatial awareness, or confidence in movement. And when movement becomes uncertain, the risk of falls can increase. So when memory begins to change, the individual and the family may feel frightened and powerless. NeuroCode allows us to support areas such as cognitive organization, proprioception, reflex integration, balance, coordination, and brain-body communication throughout the lifespan. We are not promising that every condition can be reversed, but we are recognizing that the nervous system remains responsive and that meaningful support can be possible. So why are we beginning a new cohort group? Families everywhere are searching for help. Parents want answers for children who are intelligent but still struggling. Adults need support after neurological injury or prolonged stress. Older individuals want to protect their movement, memory, balance, and independence. One practitioner cannot reach every family, and that's why we are beginning our second NeuroCode cohort group. It's an 18-month training program designed to develop knowledgeable, compassionate, and skill-based healing for the brain. The apprenticeship combines online education, guided study, hands-on practice, mentoring, case observation, and community support. The training unfolds gradually because this work deserves more than a weekend course. Students need time to understand the system and practice the techniques, ask questions, observe patterns, and develop confidence. And the goal is not simply to provide information. The goal is to develop a healing community of practitioners who can think critically, observe carefully, work responsibly, and support each person as an individual. So, when will this begin? In August. If you're interested in helping others to expand their cognitive abilities. This apprenticeship will explore areas like foundational brain integration, visual and auditory processing, speech and swallowing patterns, primitive and postural reflexes, proprioception and balance, movement coordination, emotional and survival responses, memory and learning, executive function, and brain-body communication. The relationship between the nervous system, the gut, immune system, heart, and other organ networks. Students will also learn how to observe the whole person rather than chasing isolated symptoms. They will be encouraged to ask questions like, what is the body trying to communicate? Where's the nervous system working too hard? What foundational system may need support? And how can we help this person experience greater organization, confidence, and function? And remember, this is not just a certification program. We're building a community. Our vision is larger than training individuals. We're building a community of brain healing specialists. We want practitioners who can support one another, share insights, continue learning, and bring hope into their communities. This community may include parents, teachers, holistic practitioners, caregivers, movement specialists, coach, and individuals who feel called to help others. Some apprentices may primarily support children with learning difficulties, while others work with adults recovering from trauma or neurological injury. Some may focus on proprioception, movement, balance, and fall prevention, and others may work with memory, attention, speech, sensory processing, or executive function. But together, this network can reach far more people than any one practitioner could reach alone. So, who may be called to this work? The NeuroCode Apprenticeship may be a good fit for people who are curious about the brain and nervous system. It may appeal to those who love working with children and families, and it may be appropriate for educators who want to understand learning from a deeper neurological perspective. And it may support holistic health professionals who want to expand their skills. It may also be very meaningful to parents or grandparents who have walked through learning or neurological challenges with their own families and now feel called to help others. A person does not need to know everything before beginning. They do need compassion. They need curiosity. They need integrity. They need patience. And they need a willingness to learn, study, practice, and grow, because we're restoring hope for those with learning difficulties so that they can deeply affect the person's identity. A child may begin to believe I'm not smart. A teenager may stop trying because repeated failure has become too painful. An adult may hide memory or processing difficulties out of embarrassment. A person with poor balance or coordination may withdraw from movement because they are afraid of falling or looking awkward. NeuroCode seeks to restore hope by showing that the struggle is not the whole story. The individual is not the diagnosis. The individual is not the failed test. The individual is not the reading level. The individual is not the movement difficulty. There may be areas of neurological system that need greater support and integration. When those foundations are addressed, new possibilities may emerge. If you want more information about joining this healing community, PM me. I'd be glad to help you join our next apprenticeship cohort.